How to discover your purpose and live the life you deserve. There's a silent lie that almost everyone believes without realizing it. That purpose appears when everything falls into place. When there's extra time, when money comes in, when life finally slows down. But here's the paradox. It's quite the opposite. Purpose doesn't emerge when life becomes comfortable. It emerges when discomfort becomes unbearable. That strange feeling of living on autopilot, even while doing everything right, isn't a crisis. It's a sign. Perhaps you have a stable routine, responsibilities, bills paid, and yet you feel an emptiness that's hard to explain. And the more you try to ignore it, the more it appears, in the constant tiredness, the lack of enthusiasm, that question that keeps coming back. Is this really it? Most people call this ingratitude or weakness, but the truth is deeper. This is your inner calling trying to align your life with something greater. What almost no one tells you is that the life you deserve doesn't come with ready-made answers or obvious paths. It begins when you understand why certain things bother you so much, why some injustices revolt you, and why you can't simply accept them. This isn't a flaw. It's design. And when you learn to decode these signals, everything changes. Your decisions, your mental clarity, your direction in life. In this video, you won't hear empty motivational phrases or promises that are too good to be true. You'll understand how life's purpose really works, why most people never live it, and what separates those who merely survive from those who build a meaningful life. Stay with me, because if you've made it this far, this content is probably no coincidence. The discomfort that no one can explain. Napoleon Hill. Have you ever noticed this in silence, usually late at night, when everything slows down and the mind starts to speak louder? Life seems organized on the outside, but inside there's a discomfort that's hard to name, as if something is out of place. It's not ingratitude, it's not drama. It's that insistent inner calling saying, there's gotta be more than this. Even living correctly, working hard, and meeting expectations, the feeling of being on autopilot doesn't go away. This discomfort is the first sign that your life's purpose is demanding attention. Ignoring it won't make it disappear. It will only increase it. The curious thing is that he tries to rationalize it, telling himself that everything is fine, that it's just tiredness or a bad phase. But the body knows before the mind, and the lack of mental clarity begins to manifest itself in discouragement, irritation, and a strange feeling of being behind. It's like driving a powerful car with the handbrake on. You can keep going, but everything requires more effort. This emptiness doesn't arise from a lack of ability. It arises because maximum potential is being wasted. A meaningful life always begins when someone stops running away from these uncomfortable questions. And, let's be honest, they don't appear by chance. Napoleon Hill would say that this discomfort is not an enemy. It's a compass. It points to the need for inner alignment, something that no external achievement can replace. People who live with purpose are not those who never feel discomfort, but those who learn to listen to it. This inner calling is a silent invitation to personal growth and real, not superficial, personal development. Most try to numb this feeling with distractions, but few have the courage to face it head-on. And that's exactly where the journey begins. Because understanding this discomfort completely changes the way one seeks answers. The mistake of looking for purpose in the wrong place. At some point you learned that life purpose should come along with a better job, more money, or recognition. So you chased it. Degree, status, approval, believing that when you got there, the feeling of fulfillment would come along. But the opposite happens. The more external the focus, the further away life becomes from meaning. The mistake isn't in wanting to grow, but in confusing personal growth with external validation. Purpose isn't a trophy, it's direction in life. And direction isn't bought, it's built. And there's a subtle trap in ready-made answers, quick tests, motivational phrases, and promises of instant clarity. They provide relief for a moment, then fade away, because they don't touch the inner calling. When someone seeks purpose outside, they ignore the inner alignment that underpins conscious decisions in the long term. It's like adjusting the rear-view mirror thinking it changes the direction. It looks right, but doesn't move the car. Real personal development begins when a person stops outsourcing answers and accepts that mental clarity requires honesty. Napoleon Hill would say that searching for purpose in the wrong place is costly, but the bill comes slowly. It arrives in the form of constant exhaustion, shallow relationships, and a strange feeling of always starting from scratch. This happens because purpose isn't found in external goals, but at the intersection of identity and consistent action. When this external search fails, frustration arises, and frustration is a sign of misalignment. The thing is, there's an internal point that reveals the right direction, and it usually manifests itself in an unexpected way, generally through what bothers you most. Instead of appearing as a clear answer, life's purpose often reveals itself as discomfort. That which irritates, bothers, and even revolts carries valuable information, though most people ignore it. One realizes that certain situations make the blood boil, while others pass unnoticed, and this is no coincidence. This indignation doesn't stem from the ego. It arises from a violated inner alignment. It's the inner calling saying that something is out of place in the world, and perhaps within oneself as well. When someone begins to observe what deeply affects them, the direction in life becomes clearer. There is a crucial difference between destructive anger and constructive indignation. The former seeks to attack people. The latter seeks to fix systems. Those who live with purpose feel the weight of injustice, negligence, or the pain of others as if it were personal, and that's not random. For example, those who are outraged by inequality often possess talent for leadership, education, or advocacy. Those who suffer seeing dysfunctional families may have within them a calling for healing, guidance, or community service. A meaningful life is born precisely from this intersection. The common mistake is trying to silence this indignation instead of decoding it. He was taught to not care, to move on, to adapt. But purpose doesn't adapt, it manifests itself. When this energy is ignored, it becomes frustration. When it is channeled, it becomes consistent action. Mental clarity arises when the person understands that they were not affected by chance. Each discomfort carries a clue, an invisible map to maximum potential. And the most interesting thing is that, along with this indignation, there is usually something he does with ease. Something that has always been there, waiting to be recognized. Almost no one pays attention to what they do naturally, because what is easy tends to seem commonplace. They shrug it off, thinking anyone can do this, without realizing that therein lies a powerful sign of life's purpose. Natural talents don't shout, they whisper, and that's why they go unnoticed. While some struggle to learn certain skills, others execute them with fluidity, mental clarity, and genuine pleasure. This isn't luck, it's design. And living with purpose begins when you stop despising what comes effortlessly. Napoleon Hill in his books, people often ask, what do people always ask you for help with? Communication, organization, conflict resolution, teaching, problem analysis, strategy, creation, all of these point to an inner calling. For example, those who explain complex ideas simply can develop content, teach classes, or lead teams. Those who are good listeners and advisors can work in mentoring, therapy, or community leadership. Real personal development happens when talent ceases to be a hobby and becomes a tool for impact. And yes, this requires taking responsibility for one's own maximum potential. The turning point happens when talent meets indignation. So think about it. What do you do well that also connects with something that bothers you in the world? This intersection creates direction in life and transforms skill into mission. Ignoring talents generates silent frustration. Using talents without purpose creates emptiness. But when there is inner alignment, consistent action flows with less resistance. And that's where many people get stuck, because exposed talent requires courage. And courage exacts an emotional price that few are prepared to pay. Why do most people never live their true purpose? The truth is that most people feel the inner calling, but give up before understanding what to do with it. It's not a lack of talent, it's a lack of environment. The wrong people drain energy, normalize mediocrity, and weaken any attempt at personal growth. When someone spends too much time with those who lack direction in life, they end up inheriting their confusion. Life's purpose requires space to breathe, and that includes carefully selecting who you associate with. Those who live with purpose are discerning, not out of arrogance, but for emotional survival. Another powerful obstacle is a lack of emotional discipline. A person might start out enthusiastic, but any criticism, rejection, or delay becomes a reason to retreat. Without emotional management, constructive indignation turns into accumulated anger, and personal development stalls. A simple example: those who react to everything said about them end up living to defend themselves, not to move forward. Mentors teach that focus means saying no frequently, including to unproductive conversations, and those who don't learn to protect their own mental clarity pay the price with stagnation. There is also the fear of growing up, disguised as comfort. Same habits, same conversations, same environments, everything predictable, everything feels safe. But purpose doesn't flourish in stagnant water. The absence of consistent action transforms maximum potential into chronic frustration, that feeling of, "I could have been more." Most people don't fail from trying and failing. They fail from never truly trying. And when a person realizes this, an uncomfortable question arises. How much longer can they live like this before the price becomes too high? Living without a purpose in life doesn't hurt all at once. It hurts little by little, almost silently. A person wakes up tired even after sleeping, feels a heavy mind, and enthusiasm fades without a clear explanation. It's not laziness, it's inner misalignment. When there's no direction in life, any path becomes more tiring than it should be. Mental clarity is lost because energy is spent simply maintaining the routine, and over time, this tiredness becomes a permanent state. This invisible price also appears in relationships and emotional health. A lack of meaningful life generates impatience, constant irritation, and a feeling of always owing something to oneself. Napoleon often says that no one becomes depressed from working too much, but from working without meaning. The absence of purpose transforms even achievements into empty experiences. Personal growth is not about accumulating tasks, it's about understanding why you do what you do. Without that, any success sounds hollow. The most dangerous thing is that this cost becomes normalized. He tells himself, "That's just how life is," while his maximum potential remains untapped. Without consistent action aligned with his inner calling, a person enters emotional survival mode. And surviving is not living with purpose. When this burden accumulates, a deep desire for change arises, not out of ambition, but out of necessity. And it is precisely at this point that some begin to realize that aligning their lives changes everything, especially when decisions begin to have a new criterion. Inner alignment changes everything. When someone begins to live with purpose, something silent happens inside. Decisions become simpler. Not easier, but clearer. Inner alignment begins to function as a natural filter for choices, invitations, and opportunities. What once confused people now loses its power because there is direction in life. The person stops accepting everything and begins to choose better, protecting time and energy. This mental clarity doesn't come from the outside. It comes from a commitment to one's own inner calling. Napoleon Hill would say that alignment is when values, actions, and goals point in the same direction. This changes who you associate with, where you go, and even the type of conversation you tolerate. For example, those seeking personal growth quickly recognize environments that drain energy and learn to leave without guilt. It's not isolation, it's awareness. Living with purpose requires daily consistency, and this consistency generates respect. First internal, then external. Gradually, identity is strengthened. The interesting thing is that, when there's alignment, the body responds. Sleeping better, thinking more clearly, acting with more intention. All of this is a consequence. Consistent action ceases to be a forced effort and becomes a natural extension of what one believes. That's when momentum kicks in. Maximum potential begins to manifest without so much friction. But this level of alignment demands a difficult choice, deciding once and for all what deserves to stay and what needs to leave your life. There's a specific moment when living with purpose stops being an idea and becomes a choice. Not someday, not when things get easier, but now. Most people wait to feel secure before acting, but life purpose doesn't respond to comfort. It responds to conscious decision. Those who move forward without guarantees develop something rare: inner confidence. Mental clarity appears after the movement, not before. And that's exactly what separates those who admire from afar from those who truly build. Napoleon I would say that purpose isn't found, it's embraced. He realizes that no one is going to knock on the door offering ready-made directions in life. Consistent action begins when a person stops negotiating with fear and accepts discomfort as part of personal growth. A simple example: someone who decides to wake up earlier to study or reflect doesn't change their life that day, but changes their identity. Small, repeated decisions build inner authority. And once that starts, there's no going back. The problem with waiting for the perfect moment is that it never comes. Perfection is an elegant excuse for not taking risks. Those who live without deciding remain trapped in untapped maximum potential, watching time pass. Deciding doesn't eliminate fear, but it redefines who's in charge. And when that decision is made, everything begins to reorganize around it: people, opportunities, paths. The issue is that, after deciding, something even more challenging arises: sustaining that decision in daily life, with real actions. After the conscious decision comes the part that almost no one romanticizes: doing it every day, even when you don't feel like it. That's where most people drop out. Living with purpose isn't about occasional grand gestures, it's about consistent action applied to daily life. Small steps, when aligned with life's purpose, accumulate a silent power. Mental clarity is strengthened because the brain begins to trust its own word. And inner confidence completely changes how a person sees themselves. Napoleon, it is often taught that identity is built through evidence, not intention. For example, someone who wants personal growth doesn't start by reading 10 books at once. They start by reading 10 pages a day. Those seeking direction in life don't wait for inspiration. They create routines. Writing down ideas, studying for 20 minutes, taking care of one's body, serving someone, simple but repeated actions. This type of discipline creates inner alignment because behavior begins to confirm the inner calling. And once behavior changes, mindset follows. The biggest mistake is consuming content without applying anything. Information without practice becomes sophisticated entertainment. Consistent action transforms knowledge into real experience, and experience generates personal authority. Little by little, maximum potential ceases to be a promise and begins to appear in concrete results. It's not fast, but it's solid. And when someone realizes they are progressing, even slowly, a new inevitable question arises: what happens when this daily action is maintained long enough to completely change the future? The life you deserve doesn't come to you. There comes a point when it becomes impossible to keep waiting for life to change on its own. Living with purpose requires accepting that no one will come to rescue you, choose for you, or decide for you. The life you deserve is not a prize, but a consequence of inner alignment combined with consistent action. When people finally get this, something changes in their perspective, their posture, their way of facing challenges. Mental clarity ceases to be a distant desire and becomes a practical result. Direction in life is born when responsibility is fully accepted. Napoleon Hill. It is often said that purpose doesn't eliminate difficulties, but it gives them meaning. Those with a purpose in life understand that obstacles are part of the journey, not a sign of error. For example, someone who decides to undertake a meaningful venture will face fear, criticism, and delays, and still persevere. Because now there is a why strong enough to support the how. Real personal growth happens when a person stops running from discomfort and begins to consciously navigate it. That's where character is built. When all of this comes together, decision, action, alignment, and identity, life begins to respond differently. The right people come into your life, opportunities arise, and your full potential begins to be truly realized. Not by luck, but by consistency. Meaningful life doesn't happen all at once. It's built step by step, choice after choice. And at that point, the question is no longer whether it's possible to live like this. The question that remains is, what will you do now that you know exactly what's at stake? The decision is now yours. Now let me ask you something, directly and honestly. After everything you've heard, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Because living with purpose isn't about agreeing, it's about acting. How many times have you felt that inner calling, that restlessness, and chosen to ignore it? How many times have you promised yourself you would change in the next phase, next year, when things get better? The truth is simple. If nothing changes, nothing changes. You already know that life's purpose isn't outside, hidden in another reality, or reserved for special people. It begins when you choose inner alignment instead of comfort, consistent action instead of excuses, personal growth instead of stagnation. So reflect. What in your life today is misaligned? Who are you spending time with? What decisions are you constantly postponing? What talent have you been ignoring out of fear or complacency? These answers say a lot about the direction you're taking. Now imagine, just for a second, what it would be like to look back in a few years and know that you had courage. Courage to decide, to act, to stand by difficult choices. A meaningful life doesn't happen by chance. It's built, step by step, by those who take responsibility for their own maximum potential. You don't need to change everything today, but you need to start today. One real step, one conscious decision, one small but aligned action. If this video resonated with you, don't let it become just another piece of content you watch. Write in the comments, what was the strongest insight you had just now? What did this video show you about yourself? And if you want to continue learning how to live with more mental clarity, direction in life, and real purpose, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you won't find easy shortcuts. You'll find ways that work.